Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining another masterclass. I'm super happy because we have one of our dearest members at the Board of Experts. You already know her very well. We've done many things together. Her name is Sarah Williams, for those who don't know her, and she's the founder of Rebel Office. She's also a business and entrepreneurship consultant, and she is my friend, and she's our partner as well at the Worldwide Immigrants Association. So she's all over the Worldwide Immigrants Association. So thank you, Sarah, for being with us today.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here again this year.
Yeah. So we've been teaching our community about how to create a business and how to create some strategies before leaving their jobs, etc. But something that we thought that was very important was to identify the kind of entrepreneurs we are, because sometimes, well, maybe you are more a person who are willing to risk more, so you are like a big entrepreneur with a lot of money, or with a very big strategy in place, so you can do something very big and different. Or maybe you're simply thinking of going on a side job, I don't know, baking muffins, or just to help your family or your family income, which is very important. So Sarah is so specialized in this, and she trains so many people on how to identify the best way to create their businesses, that it was an obligation for me to ask her to come and tell us how to identify ourselves as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'm
So
so excited to be here. And like you were saying too, it's really dependent on your lifestyle and how does it fit into your wants and goals and dreams of your life? How can you build a business? And there's so many different types of businesses and we'll go over it, but like, how do you build one to fit with what you're currently doing or where you want to go?
yeah, yeah, it is important because that is going to be part of your life. And when you leave a job, a 9 to 5 job, to establish your company, that means that that is almost yourself in a screen or in a local shop, or in your community whatsoever. So beginning by knowing the kind of entrepreneur you are and the kind of establishment or business you want to create, I believe, and I'm sure Sarah is going to tell us, that that depends a lot on the success of this business.
100%.
So I leave you the stage, Sarah, and let us know all about it.
Okay. That's now let's jump into this giant topic of entrepreneurship. There's so much to cover. So yeah, as Diana was saying, we wanted to just explore different types. If you're starting to think about it, or if you're new to entrepreneurship, then maybe you'll start to see where you could fit or where you could make entrepreneurship fit into your life. So to jump in first, like there are some general traits that every entrepreneur needs. Like no matter how much your business consumes your life, you need these traits. So I'm going to run through them quickly. Let me see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7-ish. So I'll run through them quickly, but I just want to keep this in mind. It's kind of like a reality check because oftentimes the like lifestyle of entrepreneurship is glorified. So I just want to make sure you're prepared for whatever may come your way, so that it just makes sense. And I'm not sitting here selling you that you can make millions of dollars in the next year if you put your mind to it. Like you can if you want, but there's some other aspects of it that I want to kind of check in with you guys with. So number one is flexibility. You need to be flexible as an entrepreneur because things will change. If anything this year has taught us, it is that things will change. And businesses have had to pivot and be flexible in order to strive and maintain operations. So even when like roadblocks are a real thing. So as you try to do something and you realize maybe it was harder than you thought, or you need to figure out a different solution, you need to be flexible and open to those solutions. Trait number 2 is vision. So having something to work towards, like a desire for something more, whether that is something more for your own life, whether that is something more for your family or for your community or for the world, whatever that vision is for you, you really want to be able to hang on to that. So having that vision in the first place is really important. grit and resilience is trait number 3. And really that means like if you're gritty, it's kind of like you're willing to like roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, that you're ready to kind of put in the work and keep going even when times get tough. Again, something that this year I think has taught all of us just in like a general lifestyle or like life lesson. The same applies to business. You just have to keep on going. And if you're committed to making it work, it's going to work. It just might not happen as quick or as easy or the way that you imagined it. Entrepreneurship can be easy and it can be fun, but that doesn't mean that no work is required. So this whole idea of like build it and they will come is kind of a lie. Like it needs to, the work's gotta be put in there. So I guess kind of breaking it down, those are the 3 main ones: flexibility, vision, and grit / resilience. They're different, but they kind of fit into the same category. And I guess wanted to reality check you in that sense to make sure that those are things that you're like, yes, okay, I do have vision. I do see this need for something more and I'm ready to put in the work to do it. And I'm ready to be flexible no matter what comes my way, because this vision that I have is so strong. So like I said, like the lifestyle can be pretty glorified. So just making sure that you prepare yourself for whatever may come is really important. And I see so many people, I think if we, Diana, I don't know if at the end we're going to talk about like common things that I see, but something that I do see a lot is people getting entrepreneurship, building a website or a social media page, and then sitting there being like, well, where is everyone? Like I've built it. But it doesn't work that way. You need to be able to actively outreach, make connections with people, build your network, and then they will come. So there's a little bit of that to it, but really it is just kind of about determination and seeing the end goal and working towards that. So jumping into the 4 types, I have 4 types of entrepreneurs that I want to walk you all through today. So basically each of these 4 types, I'm going to kind of explain what it means because I've kind of given them names or titles. And then I'll go through kind of what your strengths are for that type of entrepreneur, and then maybe what you might be weak at. So something to take into consideration beforehand and make sure that those kind of like checks and balances are in place to make sure that you can optimize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. So the very first type, or I guess all 4 of them, I'll recap them first, is the hobbyist, the side hustler, the business owner, and the CEO. So if you're sitting there thinking like, I probably fit into that, let's see, let's jump in. So the hobbyist is, they've built their business as more of like a creative outlet. So say you like potting plants and selling them at the end of your driveway, or say that you like to create cheese boards out of reclaimed barnwood, for example. Like those are kind of hobbies, and they don't necessarily need to be related to crafting. They could be, say you love managing people's social media, but it's just something to like play around with for yourself. And you like just kind of experimenting and using other people's channels, for example. So
walking dogs, can that be a hobbyist, dog walker?
It could be. So the hobbyist is normally not in it for the money. So yeah, if you love hanging out with dogs and you just like want to be around everyone else's dogs, then by all means, a dog walker makes sense for you because it's something that you enjoy doing. It's more of a hobby for you. So like I said, money is not really a motivator there. That's more of a side hustler that we'll get into if you're like, okay, I need to find something that I can do to bring money into my life. But for the hobbyist, no. I mean, again, it could be, but money isn't really the prime motivator of that. It's more the creative, or the ability to create every day and having that creative outlet. That's the motivator. So what a hobbyist is good at is being creative and building and going out and trying and experimenting and just doing fun things. because there's not really that pressure that starts to sink in as you become more like business focused, where all of a sudden it's about making money. So without that pressure, the ability to create and be inspiring and experiment and try new things, you're great at that as a hobbyist. And then what you might be weak at is setting boundaries and strategy and maybe money management, because say you work a full-time job, like a 9 to 5 or a corporate job, whatever you call it, and then you come home and you want to create things like paint pictures and do all of this stuff, then you might have a hard time finding balance in your life, either between the two or your job, your hobby, and then the rest of your life, like your family and your friends. So making sure that if you are more of a hobbyist, or if that's something you want to start exploring, and sure you create, but you know that people are willing to like pay you money for it, just make sure that you're setting those boundaries beforehand, so that when that starts to pick up, so say all of a sudden someone shares a picture of your plant pot that you sell at the end of your driveway on social media and you get a ton of business, then all of a sudden there can be pressure to create and please and be able to meet that demand. And then it can start to kind of take the joy out of it as well. So just make sure that you set those boundaries. That's the biggest takeaway. If you can take anything away, if you are a hobbyist, set those boundaries and acknowledge that you're doing it because you love doing it. So don't let that be taken away from you. But if you do start to shift into the next category, that's okay too. That's really more about money management and starting to monetize on your creativeness. So let's jump into that one. So a side hustler maybe is looking for extra income, or maybe it was kind of like thrown onto you if you were coming from the hobbyist category before. You're hoping that it'll someday lead to something. Like maybe you're starting to see traction, or maybe you're going into it saying, I need to bring in extra income into my business. What can I do to make money now on the side, on top of my job or on top of whatever else you're doing? Then the side hustler is like a part-time entrepreneur. That does not at all mean that you're not an entrepreneur. That just means that you're not doing it full time. So I don't want to like negate that. Side hustling is 100% a legit way to make money. But basically, you're looking for extra income. So figuring out how to monetize maybe something you're good at or something you like doing. So what you're really good at is getting stuff done. Like you're there, you're working maybe full time, and you're sitting there saying, okay, whatever it takes, I still need to bring in extra money, or I want to bring in extra money into my life. So I'm going to set those boundaries and get it done and make it work. And a lot of people also transition. So there's kind of two sides to side hustling. You could be a side hustler where you just want to make extra money, and you're working, you're making it happen, you're bringing in money. Or there's people who want to eventually transition into a full-time business owner, but you don't want to leave the security of your job yet. Like obviously you want to validate and make sure that your idea works beforehand, before you transition fully. So that's kind of the two sides, where a side hustler may not be seeing the big picture yet of what they want, and that's okay. Or they're in it for a short period of time, or they're just happy with running their business 2 hours at nighttime or in the morning. Or there's someone who's actively working to turn it into something that can one day fully support you. So what you're good at, getting things done, what you might be weak at, seeing the big picture. Again, setting boundaries, but in a different way. So if you're the side hustler that is looking to eventually build your side hustle into a full-time business, then setting boundaries might be a little tough for you, because you're going to come home from your full-time job, work on your business because you want it to someday replace your full-time job. And then again, that pressure is really there to make it work. And that's when boundaries can start to get a little lost. That could end up you waking up 3 hours early or staying up all night just to see some sort of movement in your business. So again, that's something to just consider is one, ask yourself, what is the big picture? Like, why am I doing this and how does it fit into my life? And the second is just making sure that you set those boundaries and you commit to kind of staying in that. No one wants to, like your friends, your family, they don't see you during the day because you're working. They might want to spend time with you every now and again. I'm sure they do. So make sure that you set those boundaries because, yes, your business is important. And yes, sacrifices will probably need to be made, but they matter too. So make sure that you set those boundaries. And again, remembering your why. So that kind of comes with that pressure that can sometimes come on us about making it work. Then it's easy to get kind of sucked into the day to day of just like, I just need to make a little bit more money today. Then it's really easy to get lost a little bit and forget the why or like forget why you're doing it in the first place. So that's something to consider as well and to just regularly check in on to make sure that you're still kind of aligned with why you're doing what you're doing. The third is business owner. So here, a business owner, you're looking to make an impact and build something that really matters. You've got the passion behind you and the drive to monetize it in order to further amplify the impact you can have or to bring money into your business or into your life. So what you're good at, making things happen and dreaming big. Two very important components of being an entrepreneur, having that vision and then that grittiness, that roll up your sleeves and get it done. So what you may be weak at is executing because even though you're good at getting things done, you might start to do a lot of things and then leave them half finished because that big vision kind of kicks back into your brain and you have another great idea and then you have another great idea. So executing and just like staying focused in general can be really hard for a business owner because you have all these great ideas, but if you like you might still be a one man shop or one woman shop at this point. So getting it all done is really hard. And then thinking long term. So you might see like a long term vision of your business, but in terms of taking action for the long term, it's hard because as a business owner, when you're fully invested in your business, you want to see results now. So even if you do see that long term vision for your business, for your life, for the team that you may want one day, it's really easy to just kind of start making decisions on the now instead. And then that long term vision keeps getting like pushed out further and further and further. So, with that, too, the last thing that you may be a little bit weak at is delegating. As a business owner, we're very invested in our businesses, right? So, being able to hand over that control can be very challenging for an entrepreneur. Even figuring out what to delegate. Like if it's your business, a lot of us, myself included, struggle with saying, okay, they could do it better than me. Or just the whole idea of like giving that away to someone when you know you could do it in less time just because of sheer like you're used to it or you've done it before. Um, yeah, it can be tough. So just figuring out and starting to dabble with or starting to really focus in on what your strengths and weaknesses actually are. Delegate the weaknesses first and like get rid of the stuff you don't like doing first. And then start looking at, okay, now to really grow my business, where do I need help? Even if you're good at it or not, where can you start to bring that in house and start to really scale from the inside out? Which leads to the last section or the last type of entrepreneur, which is CEO. So CEO, you're there to build a sustainable and growing business. Not that the emotions taken out of it, but it's a much more strategic role and your passion, it's still there. Like I don't want to like, but you've built company values And now the company's kind of standing on its own. So you've kind of disassociated your personal identity with your business. It's its own breathing, living thing. You're there to just make sure that it keeps breathing, basically. So you are building something that will run without you. So, like I said, that disassociation, that's really where the CEO comes in. So, what you're good at is you're good at creating space, you're good at delegating and doing the strategy work and thinking long term, and with that big picture in mind. That's your job as the CEO, is that you see how it all clicks together. But what you might be weak at is the creative aspect of it and really enjoying the ride. You might be so focused on making everything else work that you forget to stop and smell the roses every now and again, because now all of a sudden you have a business, this living, breathing thing that's separate from you that needs to keep going. And even though you're disassociated, that's a lot of pressure on you to keep that going and to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And by the way, something will always go wrong, but that's okay. So that's really, those are really the four types of entrepreneurs. I would love to know if anyone like feels like they fit in one way or the other. I would personally say I'm somewhere in between business owner and CEO. I'm like learning how to be more strategic and disassociate more. But for me, even with Rebel Office, it's a bit more, it's still challenging. It's a weird transition. So even going through those four categories, you might see yourself in one category with like little bits and pieces of you in another. So you're not confined to the buckets that I just ran over. You're not confined to being a hobbyist when you want also to make money from your hobby, but you still enjoy doing it. Like there's going to be some like overflow, and that's okay. So yeah, Diana, where would you see yourself in those four?
You were talking about the CEO and the business owner. I believe I am doing both at the same time. I see myself in those.
Yeah.
However, I see also that at delegating, you were talking about the importance of delegating, and I saw that the curve grows as your business is growing.
Yeah.
So there is no way that you won't have to delegate if you want your business to grow. If you really wanted to become a side hustle or hobbyist, for example, where you don't need anything but your talent and your own personal strategy, then it is okay. But when it is about really literally having this vision of growing your business, definitely delegating is something that is an obligation.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, like being a CEO, when this entity, the full entity, has its own name and it's already separate from you, I believe that is the most difficult to let go for different people.
100%. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, you might, whoever's watching, you might see yourself in different areas, and that's okay. Or you might see yourself in one but want to be another. So what do you do? Or you might be none of these yet, but you're like, I'm really attracted by the idea of maybe building in more freedom, whether it's creative freedom, whether it's financial freedom, into your life. So where do you start? Like, how do you get started? First, I would say look into your current life. Look at what you like about your current life, what's not working, where you don't feel totally aligned, and then look at the life you want. So what you can do, it's called, what is it called? Like future casting. So basically, if you grab a pen and paper and just sit down and say like 5 years from now, if you write and like journal, if you're into journaling, or let's just say writing in case journaling kind of scares you, but pretend it's 5 years from today and write down what your life looks like then and figure out where the gaps are, what, like you might be living that right now, but there might be some aspects that's a little different. So what are those things? I would suggest building your business for that life, that future casted, that more aligned, more desirable life. Build your business for that. So, what you can do is you can start looking at your time availability and your financial resources, any sort of level or desire for creative output. I would start to look at what you have available now to start getting you closer to that. So basically, what I do with every client working on their business model is brainstorming every possible way you can make money. Whether or not it feels aligned, if you just start to like brain dump and like get the creative juices flowing for every single way you can think of to make money, whether you're looking at what other people are doing and you're writing that down, whether they're ideas that you've had before, write those down. Really brainstorm and put down absolutely every idea on a piece of paper. You're not going to do them all. This is just to start to like get the creativeness going, really start to explore every option. So then you can look at those ideas and start to say, okay, that one doesn't work. That one's kind of interesting. I might explore that more. Ooh, definitely not that one. That one 100% is what I'm going to do. Like you don't know, and you can just start to like weed out the ones that you're like definitely a no on. And then you can start to explore the other options, the maybes, the absolute yeses, and start to experiment and see what makes sense there. If you don't have any idea yet what you want to do, but you know that it's something you want to start exploring, I would look at three things. If you think of like a Venn diagram where you know the circles overlap and then the middle piece is really the sweet spot, look at or create one of those. And in each of the three circles have, or in one of each of the three circles. Okay, each circle is going to either be skills, passions, and what people pay for. Okay, so skills, passions, and what people pay for. So, what are you good at? What do you love? It doesn't need to be, I'm a business strategist, but in my passions, I love ethical consumption and like natural products and um, herbalism and like all this stuff, like that's in there. And then my skills, oh, well, I'm really good at consulting people. I'm really good at turning someone's vision into real language so that they can actually see it come together, even if they don't know how to put it together. And you can start to explore your skills and your passions and then bring in this component of, okay, well, what do people pay for? What are they actively looking for? Do they pay for courses? Do they pay for trainings? Do they, all of this stuff, just start exploring it and see what comes out of that and see what sort of ideas come from there. And again, diversifying helps. Like I'm with Rebel Office, our kind of process is simplify, streamline, and then scale. But with simplification, I always make this kind of side note that that doesn't mean not diversified. If anything this year has taught us, it is the importance of diversifying what you're doing and kind of protecting yourself and having multiple business or like revenue streams in your business. Now, if you're just starting out, there's nothing wrong with starting with one idea and going from there. But if you want to start exploring, like, I guess my point is don't totally cut off your other ideas because you can eventually use them to build this more diversified, protected um, model that if one of your income streams goes away, say because of a global pandemic and people can't pay you anymore, then you have other methods of bringing in money into your business. Um, and that doesn't mean you're complicating anything. That just means you have different revenue streams. They're not one and the same. So I would say just do the strategy work first. No matter how big or small you plan on your business being, just do the strategy work first and make sure that you're being intentional from the very beginning. Um, and again, that's kind of a two-edged, like a double-edged sword because I don't want that holding you back, but I want you to just regularly check in and say, is this still aligned? Is this still the direction that I want to be going in. But I don't want you to stop yourself from doing anything if you don't see that next step. If you don't see that next step, if it hasn't clicked for you yet, keep experimenting and then keep checking in and then keep experimenting and then keep checking in. And eventually you'll start to feel something that works. And then make sure you really do the strategy work then. When you're starting to really build something and see traction, always just stop and do the strategy work. Do the values alignment. Do the strategy to make sure that it fits with your life. Do the strategy to make sure you're talking to the right people. But ultimately, just like start showing up and building community. So as soon as possible, like doing the strategy work first is important. Getting it out there is important. I would put those two equally. Do them both at the same time. But just like start showing up and sharing your message. Start talking about what you're good at. Start talking about the cool crafts that you did that you now have available for sale. Start talking about how you help someone do something and that problem that you solve. Just start showing up and building that community as soon as possible, because then you can start worrying about selling and building out this beautiful brand and doing all of that stuff. But getting out there first and showing up, once you have an inkling of an idea of where you want to go, that community is going to serve you way longer than a logo is, because chances are you're going to change your logo, but your community is going to be with you, and they're who you can start selling to once you start to build that trust and showcase what you're really good at and what your business is all about. So that was a lot. 4 types of entrepreneurs. Again, how and where to start. Start showing up and talking about it, and then start to make sure that, or I guess always verify that it's fitting into the life you want, because you don't want that to run away from you. I think Diane and I have both experienced where our businesses start to go in a direction and we're like, wait a second, like, why did I start this again? Like, what am I really doing? And you always come back to the drawing board and just kind of say, okay, let's realign. Let's figure this out. Let's find a plan forward that fits with where we're going now.
And I believe those are the most important things to do, to redirect, either if it is a very small business or a bigger one, to always go back to the why, as you were saying, is the most important thing, because there you will find the essence, the soul of your business. Because your business, as you will grow it, you will find its own personality. And we've discussed about that with Sarah. I believe, let me switch the view so everybody can see you as well. So I believe, like we've both discussed about that. I work also very close with Sarah and Rebel Office and Sarah at WYA, and we see how sometimes we have to let go and let the business do as it wants to do. Yeah. And some others we need to yeah, you want to go there, but no, you're here and you were done because of that, right? It's like another person. So for us, it is very important to always know what we did it, why we created, why we want to serve this kind of communities or people, so we can, in consequence, serve better and deliver better quality of things or services, right?
And with that, and like as you start to do new things, as you start to grow your hobby or grow your side hustle or grow your business, it's easy to get distracted by what other people are doing. It's easy to, again, that's a whole comparison talk. That's like a talk for a whole other day. But that's just a whole thing. But it's really easy to get lost and distracted. So like Diana was saying, knowing that why is so important. It's kind of like your compass. As you are like making business decisions, checking back in on your why and your values is really what's going to drive your business forward and help you make those decisions when those decisions are tough ones to make.
Yeah. Actually, while you were telling us all those characteristics, I wrote that you were suggesting us to write down all our ideas and all the things that we want to create. And
Yeah.
sometimes, and it happened to me at the beginning as well, I wrote so many ideas that I wanted to do them all.
Yeah.
And when you also don't know or don't learn how to discriminate from those which are not very useful and those which you, as Sarah was saying, can put aside for later or to come back and explore, it can become a problem, right?
Yeah, 100%. So in that case, I would suggest two things. One, maybe look at your available resources in your life now. So if there's something you can go out and do and start getting the word out there and taking action now, try it. Like nothing to date has been the end of the world, right? So you going out there and trying a new idea, it's not going to, I mean, I guess unless you're like this evil scientist, like it's not going to ruin the world. So I would say just start with that and look at your available resources. I would also say do market research. So if you're stuck between a couple of ideas, get out there, talk to people, see which one's more appealing to them, and take everything with a grain of salt. So only talk with people who you want to sell to. If your parents or your husband or partner, whatever, isn't your ideal client or customer, like isn't the people you would normally sell to, their opinion can dissuade you because they might say, oh, well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
But they
because they
don't
don't
understand.
connect. Yeah.
Exactly. They don't connect to it. It's not for them. So if you're doing market research and you're going out there in Facebook groups or hopping on calls or um, talking to someone on the street, whatever it is, just make sure that you're kind of qualifying those people a bit first to say, oh, like for me, oh, are you a female entrepreneur that runs their online business? Like, do you have an online business already? Or are you looking to build more freedom into your life and build an online business with any sort of service knowledge you have? So for me, I kind of qualify them first because I don't need to talk to someone who works in a corporate job that loves being there and has no interest in becoming an entrepreneur. Like that doesn't serve me. So
Of course,
they
yeah.
won't understand. Their values
Yeah.
are different. So yeah,
Yeah.
qualifying, doing market research, but
It is because it's so broad to talk about entrepreneurship. Now you're talking about like discovering or learning how to describe and see our ideal client, which could be another kind of masterclass.
yeah.
Because it is so important to know who we are selling our services or the products, even if it's the first step in your little business at home. Maybe you're selling, I don't know, something which is prepared like home cooked meals for parties, and it's not vegan, and your community, the most of them are vegans. So what is going to be your client? Anyway, that is another topic for another master class, and it is so fascinating. I just would love to add, and I've already mentioned this several times in other talks, always think while you're introspecting about creating your business, small or big, or full-time or part-time, think of the things that you are ready to do, stop doing, having, and stop having, because this is going to start being a challenge. It doesn't matter if it's going to be starting from a very, very small side. Think of those things that you are ready to sacrifice, and those things that you're ready to welcome in your life, because becoming an entrepreneur is becoming another person.
100%. And like we talked a lot about like strategy and like knowing how to do different things, but a big part of entrepreneurship is mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another topic, like it's so big. But just knowing how to kind of create an environment around you that's going to foster you to be the best you can be, so that you can show up as your best for your business and for your ideas, and then in turn through that for your family and for your community and for the world, because you're really stepping into who you are and showing up and building a business that's impacting and serving other people.
Yeah. Anyway, I with this conversation, it was so useful, and at the same time, it feels like we cannot stop here. We will need like part 10 of this conversation. But I really appreciate that you were here with us. And from this, the main thing that I take is that every business can become a great business. From the hobbyist, you can grow to be the CEO. So that is going to be either flat or like this,
Like this?
or like this, but it will always depend. It will always depend on what you want.
Yeah.
Because if you want this hobbyist to become a CEO, then you will put the work and you will put yourself on it.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sarah, for this. I loved this conversation. You know how much I love sharing this kind of conversations with you. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, I love talking about this. And like you said, it's such a big thing. So with anything, like don't get overwhelmed by any of it. Like the getting overwhelmed and stressing out about not knowing all the steps isn't going to help you get there. So just look at the next thing you can do. Sit down and say, what's one thing I can do today to get me closer to that? And just worry about that, because it's big. It's a big thing. But people are entrepreneurs. They become them every day. They build incredible businesses. And you can too.
And more these times, I believe like no one, well, literally most of the people right now, we have side hustles or are hobbyists because we need more income in our families, or we just like being productive and adding to our society. So this is something, and for immigrants, that is a place, and you told us in your other masterclass, like most immigrants, when they move into another country, they become entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And like very successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is very useful. Sarah, thank you so much. We need to do more.
We can do more. I'll come
Thank
back.
you. Thank you. And thank you all guys for joining, and see you in the next time. Ciao.
Bye everyone.